You know, there are some stories that just stick with you. In the winter of 1959, in the remote Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, a story of survival and terror unfolded, and it ends with a series of questions that even today have no clear answers.
So, the scene is remote, and the conditions are absolutely brutal. 9 really seasoned hikers, they go on this challenging expedition, and they just vanish. But it's how they died that takes this story from a tragedy into something truly, deeply bizarre.
When a search party finally reached their last known location, they didn't find a simple accident. Not at all. They found a scene of pure terror. The group's tent was slashed open from the inside, and all their belongings were just left behind. It's like they fled in a panic into the deadly sub-zero wilderness with nothing.
Now, to really get how strange their fate was, we first have to understand who these people were. This wasn't a group of reckless amateurs. No, these were trained, prepared, and incredibly experienced individuals.
Their leader was a 23-year-old named Igor Dyatlov. The whole team was made up of students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were setting out on a classified difficulty trek to Orton 10 Mountain, which was a huge deal in Soviet mountaineering circles. These guys knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, there was actually a 10th member, Yuri Yudin, but he turned back early because he got sick, a decision that without a doubt saved his life. His words just hang over this entire incident, a really haunting reminder of how close he came to the exact same fate.
Weeks later, when a search party finally made it to the site, the scene they found just made no sense at all. This is really where the mystery goes from strange to unbelievable.
So think about it. If you had to evacuate in an emergency, you'd open the tent flap and grab your gear, right? Well, what the rescuers found was the complete opposite. A tent slashed open from the inside, all their supplies just abandoned, and these chaotic footprints suggesting a desperate, panicked flight.
And this is what they fled into. -30 degrees Celsius. That's -22 Fahrenheit. Some of them were barefoot, others had just socks on. Something terrified them so much that they chose to face this unimaginable cold over whatever was happening at that tent.
The bodies were eventually found scattered in 3 separate groups. The first 2 groups, found near a big cedar tree and between the camp and the forest, had mostly died of hypothermia. But it was the 3rd group, discovered months later in a ravine, that held the most baffling clues of all.
The autopsy reports. This is where the mystery really gets its chilling reputation. The injuries found on some of the hikers made absolutely no logical sense, and they left the medical examiners completely stumped.
Okay, get this. Several of the victims had these catastrophic internal injuries, crushed skulls and fractured ribs, the kind of force you'd see in a high-speed car crash. But here's the impossible part. On the outside, they had almost no wounds, no bruises, no cuts, and to make it even stranger, one of the victims was found missing her tongue.
So this is the central question, right? How do you get injuries from a massive blunt force trauma without any outward sign of impact? I mean, that one question has just baffled investigators for over 60 years.
And just when you think this story can't get any weirder, it does. They found traces of low-level radioactivity on some of the hikers' clothes. It's just another bizarre piece to an already impossible puzzle.
So with evidence this strange, it's really no surprise that dozens of theories have popped up over the decades. Let's walk through some of the most prominent ones.
You know, the official Soviet investigation was shockingly brief. They basically just concluded that the hikers died from an unknown, compelling natural force, and then they sealed the case files. It's about as unsatisfying a conclusion as you can possibly get.
The most widely accepted scientific theory today points to something called a slab avalanche. The idea is that a wall of dense snow slid down, which could cause those internal injuries without leaving a huge pile of debris. This would have forced the group to cut their way out in a disoriented panic. But still, the original investigators at the scene found no definitive proof of an avalanche. Okay, another really fascinating natural theory is infrasound. Just imagine wind moving over the mountain in a specific way that creates a low-frequency vibration. You can't hear it, but you can feel it. This phenomenon is actually known to cause intense, irrational panic and dread, which might explain why the hikers suddenly fled in such chaos.
Now, given that this was the height of the Cold War, and then you have the radioactivity, a lot of people point to a secret military weapons test. A nearby explosion could have created a concussive blast wave, causing those internal injuries without leaving external marks.
But to this day, there's never been any official confirmation of military activity there at that time.
And from there, the theories get even wilder. People have suggested everything from a UFO encounter fueled by some reports of strange orange lights in the sky to a violent fight within the group. But honestly, these theories just don't have any strong evidence to back them up.
The modern consensus kind of leans towards a perfect storm of tragic events, a small, unusual avalanche that creates the initial shock, followed by disorientation and a panicked flight into the lethal cold. But even that explanation doesn't perfectly account for every single strange detail.
So that brings us right back to the central question. You've got 9 experienced hikers, a tent slashed from the inside, totally inexplicable injuries, and a panicked run into deadly cold. What force, natural or otherwise, could possibly cause something like that?
After more than 60 years of investigations, documentaries, and scientific papers, the definitive answer is still out there. The truth of what happened on that frozen slope, it seems, was buried in the snow, right along with the 9 who never came back.